My name is Owen Scott. I just turned 19, and I thought becoming an adult meant freedom from the dysfunction I had grown up in. I thought it meant finally escaping the selfishness and greed that had poisoned my family for years. Instead, it meant being the only one adult enough to fight for someone who could not fight for himself. It meant watching my grandfather die in squalor because my parents valued money more than his life, and then spending every moment since making sure they paid for what they did. The call came at 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday in October. I remember the exact time because I had been up studying for my organic chemistry midterm, surviving on Red Bull, and determination in my cramped dorm room at State University. My phone lit up with Mom's contact photo, a picture from 3 Christmases ago when we still pretended to be a happy family. Before Grandpa's stroke, before the arguments about money, before everything fell apart. Owen, her voice was strange, controlled in a way that immediately set off alarm bells in my head. I need you to come home. What happened? I was already closing my textbook, already knowing this was not going to be good. It's Grandpa. He passed away tonight. The words hit me like a physical blow. I sank onto my narrow dorm bed, the springs creaking under my weight. What? How? I just saw him 2 weeks ago when I visited, and he seemed... The nursing home called around midnight. They said it was peaceful. In his sleep. Peaceful. The word tasted like bile in my mouth. Nothing about Grandpa's last 6 weeks had been peaceful. Nothing about that horrible place my parents had dumped him in had been peaceful. Sunny Acres Care Facility. Even the name was a lie. There were no Sunny Acres, just a converted strip mall sandwiched between a liquor store and a check-cashing place in the worst part of town. I'll be there in 3 hours, I said, already shoving clothes into my backpack. There's no rush, honey. The funeral home won't even be open until... I said I'll be there. I hung up before she could respond. As I drove through the darkness, my beat-up Honda Civic struggling to maintain 70 on the interstate, memories flooded back. Grandpa before the stroke, strong, independent, living in his own house that he had built with his own hands after returning from Vietnam. He had been a master carpenter, an artist with wood who could create furniture that would last generations. His workshop in the garage had been my sanctuary, growing up, the one place where the chaos of my parents' constant fighting could not reach me. I remembered the smell of sawdust and linseed oil, the sound of his patient voice, teaching me how to measure twice and cut once, how to feel the grain of the wood and work with it rather than against it. "Wood has memory, Owen," he would say, running his weathered hands along a piece of oak. "Treat it with respect, and it will serve you well. Treat it poorly, and it will never forgive you." The stroke had taken his right side, his ability to work, his independence, but not his mind. That remained sharp until the end, trapped in a body that had betrayed him. The doctors said he needed full-time care. Medicare would cover a decent facility, they said, especially with his veteran benefits. But my parents had other ideas. I had been at college when they made the decision. Dad called me on a Wednesday afternoon while I was between classes. "We found a place for Grandpa," he said, his tone suggesting this was a done deal, not a discussion. "Where?" "Sunny Acres. It's clean, it's close to the house, and they have an opening immediately." "How much?" I knew my parents well enough to know that cost was always their primary concern. $800 a month. Even as a college student, living on ramen and peanut butter, I knew that was impossibly cheap for nursing care. "Dad, that can't be." "It's fine, Owen. We checked it out. It's basic but adequate." Basic but adequate. Those words would haunt me forever. What I did not know then, what I would not discover until I went through Grandpa's papers after his death, was that his military pension and Social Security were bringing in almost $4,000 a month. My parents were pocketing $3,200 $200 while putting him in the cheapest hellhole they could find. I had visited him there exactly 3 times in those 6 weeks. Each time was worse than the last. The first time, 2 weeks after they moved him in, I found him sitting in a wheelchair in what they called the day room, a cramped space with flickering fluorescent lights and a television that only got 3 channels. The smell hit me first, urine, disinfectant, and something else, something like despair made tangible. Owen, his face lit up when he saw me, and he tried to wheel himself forward with his good hand. Thank God you're here. You have to get me out of this place. Grandpa, what's wrong? Are they treating you okay? He looked around nervously, then beckoned me closer. They leave us sitting for hours, he whispered. I've been asking to go to the bathroom since breakfast. They said they'd get to me when they could. It was 2 in the afternoon. I found a staff member, a woman who looked exhausted and overwhelmed, and practically had to beg her to help him. She sighed like I was asking for something unreasonable, but finally took him to the bathroom. When they came back, I noticed a wet spot on his pants that had not been there before. Sometimes we can't wait any longer, Grandpa said quietly, his dignity shattered. I called my parents that night, furious. We need to move him somewhere better. Owen, he's being dramatic, Mom said. It's an adjustment period. He'll get used to it. Get used to it? Mom, he's sitting in his own. Don't be crude. The place is state certified. If there were real problems, the state would shut them down. The second visit was worse. I found him in his room, a 10 by 12 box he shared with another resident who moaned constantly. Grandpa had lost weight, his face gaunt, his eyes hollow. There were marks on his wrists. They tie me down at night, he explained when he saw me looking. They say I'm a fall risk. The smell in his room was overwhelming. I looked closer at his bed and saw stains on the sheets that looked days old. The trash can was overflowing. There were dead flies on the windowsill. When did someone last clean in here? I asked. He laughed bitterly. Tuesday, maybe? The days run together. This was Thursday. I took photos with my phone. I complained to the administrator, a woman who smiled too much and promised to look into my concerns. I called Adult Protective Services and was told they would investigate, but that these things take time. I begged my parents again. Do you have any idea how much a better place costs? Dad snapped. $5,000 a month? Where do you think that money's going to come from? What about his pension? His Social Security? That barely covers our expenses for taking care of his house and his affairs. Do you think managing all this is free? His house. The house Grandpa built. The house my parents had already listed with a realtor. Though Grandpa did not know that yet. The third visit was the last time I saw him alive. It was 2 weeks ago, and I almost did not recognize him. He had lost maybe 20 pounds. There were open sores on his arms, bed sores I would later learn, from being left in the same position for hours. His breathing was labored, rattling in his chest. Please, he grabbed my hand with his good one, his grip still surprisingly strong. Please, Owen, don't let me die here. Not like this. I'm trying, Grandpa. I'm trying to figure something out. I know what they're doing, he said, his eyes suddenly clear and focused. I know about the money. I know about the house. I know everything. How? Gladys. He nodded toward the door. The lady who brings the lunch trays. Her daughter works at the bank. Small town, people talk. He squeezed my hand harder. I changed my will last month. Had a lawyer come here. Witnessed and everything. It's all going to you, Owen. Every penny. The house. The accounts. Everything. Grandpa, I don't care about. I know you don't. That's why it's yours. But they don't know yet. And Owen. He pulled me closer, his voice dropping to barely a whisper. Document everything. Take pictures. Keep records. When I'm gone, and it won't be long in this place, make them pay. Promise me. Don't talk like that. You're going to be fine. Promise me, Owen. I promise. He died 4 days later, alone. The night staff found him during their 3 a.m. rounds. By then, he had been dead for hours, they estimated. He had pressed his call button. They found it clutched in his good hand, but no one had come. The battery in the receiver at the nurse's station had died, and no one had noticed. Now, driving through the pre-dawn darkness toward home, toward the parents who had let this happen, I felt rage building in my chest like a physical thing. They had not just let him die, they had profited from it. $3,200 a month for 6 weeks. Over $19,000 they had pocketed while he suffered. I pulled into my parents' driveway as the sun was beginning to rise, painting the sky the color of old blood. Their house, a McMansion they had bought 5 years ago with money I now suspected had darker origins, looked obscene in the morning light. Mom's Lexus and Dad's BMW sat in the driveway, freshly waxed and gleaming. The front door was unlocked. I found them in the kitchen, having coffee like it was any other morning. Mom was wearing her tennis outfit. Dad was scrolling through his phone, probably checking his investment portfolio. Owen! Mom stood up, coming toward me with arms outstretched. Oh, honey, I'm so sorry about Grandpa. I stepped back from her embrace. Are you? She blinked, confused. Of course I am. He was my father-in-law. He was your income stream, I said flatly. Dad looked up from his phone, his expression hardening. What's that supposed to mean? I know about the money. $4,000 a month coming in, $800 going to that hellhole you stuck him in. Pretty good profit margin. Now listen here. Dad stood up, using his height advantage to try to intimidate me like when I was younger. Taking care of an elderly parent is expensive. There are countless expenses you don't understand. Like Mom's tennis club membership, like the payment on the BMW. How dare you come into my house? Grandpa's house, actually. The one you already have listed for sale, even though he was still alive when you did it. Mom's face went pale. How did you? He knew. He knew everything. And he made sure you won't see a penny of it. What are you talking about? Dad's voice was rising now, his face getting red the way it did when he was about to lose control. He changed his will, left everything to me. The house, the accounts, all of it. That's impossible. He wasn't competent to. Competent enough according to his lawyer, and the 2 witnesses, and the notary. Dad grabbed my shirt, pulling me toward him. You manipulative little shit. You turned him against us. No, I said, not flinching. You did that yourselves when you left him to rot in that place. He raised his fist, and for a moment I thought he was going to hit me. Part of me wanted him to. It would make what came next easier. But Mom grabbed his arm. David, no. The neighbors. Always worried about appearances. Even now. He let me go with a shove. Get out of my house. Gladly. But first, you should know that I documented everything. Every bed sore, every soiled sheet, every violation. I have photos, videos, recorded conversations with staff, admitting they were understaffed and underfunded. I have the paperwork showing how much money you were taking versus how much you were spending on his care. So what? Dad sneered. He's dead. You can't prove we did anything illegal. Maybe not criminal, but definitely actionable in civil court. Elder abuse, financial exploitation, negligent homicide. My pre-law roommate's father is a partner at Brennan Associates. They're very interested in the case, especially since Sunny Acres has had 12 similar deaths in the past year. Mom sank into her chair. Owen, please. We're your parents. You were supposed to be his son and daughter-in-law. That didn't stop you. I turned to leave, then paused at the doorway. The funeral is Saturday. Don't bother coming. You're not welcome. The drive to Sunny Acres took 20 minutes. I knew the police would probably be there soon. The administrator would have called them the moment she heard about Grandpa's death, knowing an investigation was inevitable. But I needed to see it one more time, needed to document everything while I could. The place looked even worse in the harsh morning light. The sign was missing letters, Sunieri's car facility, and the parking lot was cracked and full of weeds. I walked through the front door, and the smell hit me again. Somehow worse knowing that Grandpa had died breathing this air. The administrator, Mrs. Henderson, was in her office, looking frazzled. She saw me and immediately started toward me, her face a mask of fake sympathy. "Mr. Scott, I'm so sorry for your loss. Your grandfather was such a sweet man." "Was he?" I pulled out my phone, started recording. "Then why did you let him die alone in squalor?" "I don't know what you mean. We provided appropriate care within our resources." "Your resources being $800 a month? How many residents are you warehousing here for families who want to pocket the difference?" Her expression hardened. "I'm going to have to ask you to leave. I'm going to my grandfather's room. Try to stop me." She did not try. She knew what was coming. The lawsuits, the investigations, the media attention. I walked down the hallway, documenting everything. The water damage on the ceiling, the broken wheelchair abandoned in a corner, the dementia patient wandering alone, confused and frightened. Grandpa's room still smelled like death. His roommate was gone, moved or dead. I did not know. Grandpa's bed had been stripped, but the mattress remained, stained with God knows what. His few possessions were in a cardboard box on the floor. A photo of Grandma, his Purple Heart from Vietnam, his watch that had stopped working weeks ago because no one had wound it for him. I picked up the photo of Grandma. She had died 10 years ago, peacefully, in her own bed, surrounded by family. "I'm sorry, Grandma," I whispered. "I'm sorry I couldn't give him the same dignity." I heard commotion in the hallway, voices authoritative and urgent. The police had arrived. Good. Let them see this place. Let them document what my parents' greed had wrought. I spent the next 3 hours giving my statement, showing them my photos and videos, explaining the financial situation. The detective, a middle-aged woman named Rodriguez, listened carefully, took notes, asked pointed questions. "This is the third death here this month," she said finally. "We've been building a case, but families usually don't want to get involved. They feel guilty." "I feel guilty," I admitted, "but not guilty enough to let them get away with it." She nodded. "We'll need all your documentation. This could be the break. We need to shut this place down." As I was leaving, I ran into Gladys, the lunch lady who had told Grandpa about my parents' schemes. She was a small black woman in her 60s, with kind eyes and worn hands. "I'm sorry about your grandpa," she said softly. "I tried to take extra care of him when I could." "Thank you. He mentioned you, said you were kind to him." She looked around, then leaned closer. "There's something you should know. Your parents weren't the only ones. Most families here, they're doing the same thing, taking the money, dumping their people in this place. Management knows. They count on it. Will you testify to that?" She hesitated, then nodded. "I'm retiring next month anyway. Yeah, I'll testify. Someone needs to speak for these people." The next few days were a blur of legal consultations, funeral arrangements, and family warfare. My parents tried everything, threats, guilt, even offering me money to drop everything. My aunts and uncles called, some supporting my parents, others suspiciously silent. The family was fracturing along lines of greed and guilt. The funeral was small. Just me, a few of Grandpa's old war buddies, some neighbors who remembered him from before. My parents did not come, though I saw Dad's car drive by the cemetery twice. I gave the eulogy, talking about the man he had been, not the victim he had become, about honor and dignity, and the failure of those who should have protected him. After the service, Grandpa's lawyer, Mr. Chun, pulled me aside. "Your grandfather was very specific in his instructions," he said, handing me an envelope. "He wanted you to read this after the funeral." I sat in my car and opened it with trembling hands. Grandpa's handwriting was shaky but legible. "Owen, if you're reading this, then I'm gone, and you kept your promise to document everything. I know this is hard. I know you're angry, but don't let the anger consume you like it did your parents. They were not always like this. Greed is a disease that grows slowly, one compromise at a time, until you wake up one day and don't recognize yourself. Use what I'm leaving you to do good. Go to medical school like you planned. Become the doctor you dreamed of being. Help people who can't help themselves. And when you have children of your own, teach them that money is just paper, but dignity is priceless. All my love, Grandpa. P.S. Check the workshop. Under the third floorboard from the north wall, I left something for you that they don't know about. I drove to Grandpa's house. My house now, though it did not feel like it. The workshop was dusty but otherwise untouched. My parents had probably planned to just throw everything away. I found the floorboard he mentioned and pried it up. Underneath was a metal box, and inside that, wrapped in oilcloth, was $30,000 in cash and a note. Emergency fund. Never told anyone. Now it's yours. Make them pay, but then move on. Living well is the best revenge. I hired the best elder law attorney in the state with that money. We filed suit against my parents, against Sunny Acres, against the management company that owned a dozen similar facilities. The investigation revealed systematic neglect, financial exploitation, and at least 40 preventable deaths over the past 3 years. The media picked up the story. Veteran dies in squalor, while family profits. Read one headline. My parents' photos were on the evening news. Dad lost his job. Mom was expelled from her tennis club. They had to sell their house to pay legal fees. But the real victory came 6 months later. The state shut down Sunny Acres and 11 other facilities owned by the same company. New regulations were passed requiring higher standards of care and regular inspections. A fund was established for victims' families, though no amount of money could bring back the dead. As for me, I did what Grandpa asked. I started medical school this fall, specializing in geriatric care. I sold Grandpa's house and used the money to establish a foundation that helps low-income families find quality care for their elderly relatives. We've helped over 100 families so far. My parents, and I don't speak, they blame me for ruining their lives, unable to see that they ruined their own lives the moment they chose money over humanity. I heard from my cousin that they're living in a small apartment now, working minimum wage jobs, all their savings gone to legal fees and settlements. Sometimes I feel guilty about that. Then I remember Grandpa's face that last time I saw him alive, the desperation in his eyes, the way he gripped my hand. I remember the bed sores, the soiled sheets, the call button clutched in his dead hand that no one answered. If you've made it this far in my story, maybe you understand that growing up isn't about reaching a certain age. It's about the moment when you realize that sometimes you're the only one willing to do the right thing, even when it costs you everything, even when it means standing against your own family. Subscribe to this channel if you believe that our elders deserve dignity, not just in life, but especially in death. Hit that notification bell to hear more stories of young people who had to become warriors for those who couldn't fight for themselves. But let me take you back to those 6 weeks, because you need to understand exactly what they did to him, exactly what greed looks like when it wears the mask of family obligation. The first week after they moved him to Sunny Acres, I was still at school, believing my parents' lies that it was temporary, just until they could find something better. Dad called me every other day with updates, all carefully crafted to keep me from driving down there. He's adjusting well, he'd say. Made a friend already. They play checkers. What I learned later from the investigation was that during that first week, Grandpa had fallen twice because there weren't enough staff to help him transfer from bed to wheelchair. The friend Dad mentioned was his roommate, Mr. Jameson, who had advanced dementia and screamed through the night, every night. Grandpa did not sleep for more than 2 hours at a time that entire first week. The second week was when the bed sores started. The state investigation found that Grandpa was left in the same position for 8 to 10 hours at a time. The staff was supposed to turn residents every 2 hours to prevent sores, but with one aide for every 15 residents, it simply did not happen. Those sores started as red marks. By week 6, they were open wounds that went down to the bone. I have the medical records now, all of them. The autopsy report that I fought to have done. He did not die peacefully in his sleep like they told my mother. He died of sepsis from infected bed sores. His body was fighting multiple infections. He was in agony. The third week was when they started the chemical restraints. Grandpa was labeled combative in his chart because he kept trying to get up on his own, kept demanding to use the bathroom instead of soiling himself. So they gave him Haldol, an antipsychotic drug, to make him more manageable. The dose was 3 times what would be appropriate for a man his age and weight. It left him confused, disoriented, barely able to recognize me when I visited. That was the visit where I found the marks on his wrists. What I did not know then was that they were also tying him to the bed at night with cloth restraints, leaving him there for 12 hours at a time. The night shift had 2 people for 60 residents. They did not have time to respond to call buttons, so they made sure residents could not get up and hurt themselves trying to get to the bathroom on their own. Week 4 was when the real deterioration began. The kitchen at Sunny Acres had failed 3 health inspections, but somehow remained operational. The food was not just bad, it was often spoiled. Grandpa got food poisoning twice in that 4th week. He lost 8 pounds in 7 days. When he complained, they marked in his chart that he was refusing meals and showing signs of depression. My parents visited him exactly once during those 6 weeks. Week 4, day 3. They stayed for 20 minutes. Mom later told her sister it was too depressing, and that seeing him like that ruined her memories of him when he was strong. They took a selfie with him for Facebook, caption, "Visiting Dad at his new home. So grateful for the wonderful care he's receiving." 43 likes. 6 comments about what wonderful children they were. Week 5 was when Grandpa had his minor stroke. Minor, the doctor said, but it took his ability to use his good hand effectively. He could no longer feed himself properly. The staff was supposed to help him with meals, but again, with their staffing levels, he often got cold food hours after mealtime, or missed meals entirely. His chart shows he was getting less than 800 calories a day. A man needs at least 1,500 to maintain weight, more if he's fighting infections. But here's what makes me angriest. During all of this, my parents were collecting his benefits and living their best lives. I have the bank records now, subpoenaed during the lawsuit. Week 1, Mom spent $1,200 at Nordstrom. Week 2, Dad bought a new set of golf clubs for $2,000. Week 3, they booked a cruise for their anniversary, $5,000. Week 4, kitchen renovation estimate, $30,000. Week 5, Dad put a deposit on a boat. A fucking boat. While Grandpa was dying of neglect. They were not just taking the difference between his benefits and the cost of Sunny Acres. They had convinced him, before the stroke, to sign power of attorney. They were draining his savings account, the money he and Grandma had scraped together over 50 years of hard work. $70,000 disappeared in those 6 weeks. Week 6, the final week, was when Grandpa gave up. The nurses noted he stopped asking for things, stopped pressing his call button, except for that final time. stopped eating what little they brought him. Failure to thrive, they wrote in his chart, as if it was his failure and not theirs. I've read the coroner's report so many times I have it memorized. Time of death, estimated between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. Cause of death, septic shock secondary to infected pressure ulcers. Contributing factors, malnutrition, dehydration, aspiration pneumonia. The report noted that he had been dead for at least 4 hours before anyone found him. 4 hours with his finger on that call button, that did not work. The investigation found that the batteries in the call system had been dead for 3 days. 3 days where residents could press those buttons all they wanted and no one would know. The administrator knew. The staff knew. They just did not have the budget to replace them. Or so they claimed. A pack of batteries would have cost $12. But let me tell you about the others. Because Grandpa was not alone in that place. Mr. Jameson, his roommate, died 2 days after Grandpa. Cause of death was listed as natural causes, but his family never questioned it. They lived in California, had not visited in 8 months. Mrs. Chun in the room next door, 93 years old, a retired teacher who had taught half the town's children. She lasted 2 weeks after Grandpa died. Her daughter told me at the funeral that she had been begging to leave, but they thought it was just dementia talking. Mr. Williams, the World War II veteran down the hall, Purple Heart, Bronze Star, survived Normandy only to die of untreated diabetes in that hellhole. His blood sugar was over 500 when they finally took him to the hospital. Too late. 40 residents died at Sunny Acres in the year before it was shut down. 40 souls who deserved better, who had lived full lives, who had contributed to society, who had loved and been loved. 40 families who chose money over care, convenience over conscience. The investigation revealed that Sunny Acres was charging families between $800 and $1,200 a month, knowing that Medicare and Social Security provided much more. It was their business model. Attract the families who wanted to pocket the difference, provide the minimum care to stay barely legal, maximize profit. The owner, Richard Blackstone, owned 12 facilities across 3 states, all operating the same way. His personal net worth was estimated at $40 million. $40 million built on the suffering of society's most vulnerable. He's in federal prison now, serving 12 years for Medicare fraud and elder abuse. Not nearly enough, but it's something. As for my parents, the civil suit destroyed them. The jury awarded me $2.3 million in damages, though most of that came from Sunny Acres Insurance Company. My parents had to pay $300,000 in restitution for the money they stole from Grandpa's accounts. They had to sell everything, the house, the cars, Mom's jewelry, Dad's boat that he never even got to use. But here's the thing about justice. It does not bring people back. It does not erase those final moments. I still wake up sometimes thinking about Grandpa pressing that dead call button, waiting for help that would never come. I think about him dying alone in pain, abandoned by the family he had loved and supported his whole life. The trial was brutal. My parents' lawyer tried to paint me as a greedy grandson trying to steal his inheritance. They brought up every mistake I had ever made, every argument we had ever had. They tried to claim Grandpa was demented, that he did not know what he was doing when he changed his will. But I had evidence. So much evidence. Photos of the facility that looked like something out of a horror movie. Recorded conversations with staff members who broke down crying as they described the conditions. Medical records showing systematic neglect. Bank records showing where every penny went. The worst part was when they put my mother on the stand. She cried, playing the victim, claiming they did the best they could with limited resources. The prosecutor destroyed her with a single question. Mrs. Scott, How much did you spend on clothing in the 6 weeks your father-in-law was in Sunny Acres? She had to answer, about $4,000. The jury's faces said everything. Dad was worse. He stayed angry, defensive, claiming I was ungrateful for everything they had done for me. When asked why he chose the cheapest facility available, he said, "It was what we could afford." Then the prosecutor showed the boat purchase receipt, $50,000, paid in cash, 3 days before Grandpa died. My testimony took 6 hours. I told them everything, every visit, every image burned into my memory, every broken promise. I told them about finding Grandpa, covered in his own waste, because no one had helped him to the bathroom in 8 hours. I told them about the maggots I found in a wound on his heel that no one had treated. I told them about his last words to me, begging not to die in that place. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. After the trial, I thought I would feel better. I thought justice would bring peace. It didn't. It brought emptiness. My parents were ruined, but Grandpa was still dead. Sunny Acres was closed, but 40 people had already died there. That's when I decided to use the money differently. The $2.3 million could have set me up for life, but that felt wrong. Blood money, even if it was legally mine. So I created the Samuel Scott Foundation for Elder Advocacy. We provide legal services for families fighting elder abuse. We inspect facilities and publish public reports. We lobby for stronger regulations and enforcement. In the first year, we've helped shut down 6 facilities and relocated over 300 residents to better care. We've trained 50 volunteers to visit nursing homes and report problems. We've created a database where families can check violation histories before choosing a facility. But more importantly, we tell the stories. Every one of those 40 people who died at Sunny Acres has a page on our website. Their photos from when they were young and vital, their accomplishments, their families, their final days. We make sure they are not forgotten, not reduced to statistics. Medical school is harder than I imagined, but Grandpa's emergency fund helps me focus on studies instead of working 3 jobs like some of my classmates. I'm specializing in geriatric medicine with a focus on palliative care. My professors say I have an unusual passion for a field that most medical students avoid. If only they knew why. I volunteer at a good nursing home now, one that actually cares for its residents. Every Thursday evening, I spend 4 hours there, just talking to people, listening to their stories, making sure they know they are not forgotten. Some of them knew Grandpa. They tell me stories about him I never heard, about the young man who came back from war and built half the houses in town, who coached Little League, who loved his wife with a devotion that lasted until his final breath. There's a man there now, Mr. Peterson, whose family reminds me of my parents. They visit once a month for 15 minutes, always checking their phones, always in a hurry. His daughter drives a Tesla, but complains about the cost of his care. His son has mentioned 3 times that this place is really eating into the inheritance. I've started recording my conversations with Mr. Peterson, with his permission. He's 91, sharp as a razor, with stories that span from the Depression to today. When he passes, and at 91, that day will come, I'll make sure his story is preserved, that he's remembered as more than a burden on his children's finances. People sometimes ask if I've forgiven my parents. The answer is no. Forgiveness would require remorse on their part, and they've shown none. The last communication I had from them was a letter from their lawyer demanding I pay for their therapy costs because my vindictive actions had caused them severe emotional distress. I framed that letter. It hangs in my apartment as a reminder of how twisted greed can make people. They live in a studio apartment now, in the same part of town where Sunny Acres was. Dad works as a cashier at a hardware store. Mom cleans offices at night. They're experiencing the poverty they were so afraid of, the poverty they forced Grandpa to die in. I don't take pleasure in that, but I don't feel guilty about it either. They made their choices. Sometimes I drive by Sunny Acres. It's still empty, windows boarded up, parking lot cracking even more. Someone spray-painted murderers on the front wall. The city keeps painting over it, and it keeps reappearing. Good. Some things shouldn't be forgotten. Inside my apartment, I have Grandpa's workshop tools, the ones my parents were going to throw away. I'm learning woodworking from YouTube videos, trying to remember his lessons. My first project was a disaster. A bookshelf that leans to the left no matter how I adjust it. But I'm getting better. Last week, I finished a jewelry box using his techniques. It's not perfect, but it's solid, honest work. Grandpa would have been proud. His Purple Heart sits on my desk, where I study. It reminds me that he survived actual war, only to die in a battle against his own family's greed. It reminds me that courage is not always about facing external enemies. Sometimes it's about standing up to the people who are supposed to love you. If you're still with me, still listening to this story, you might wonder why I'm sharing all these painful details. It's because this is happening right now, in every city, in every state. Elderly people are being warehoused in facilities that should not be allowed to operate, by families who value money over morality. And the only way it stops is if people like me, like you, refuse to stay silent. Check on your elderly neighbors. Visit nursing homes, even if you don't know anyone there. Report neglect when you see it. Don't assume someone else will handle it. Don't assume the family is doing their best. Sometimes the family is the problem. Subscribe to this channel if you believe our elders deserve better. Hit that notification bell to join a community of people who understand that how we treat our most vulnerable defines who we are as human beings. Share these stories with others who need to hear them. The night before Grandpa died, the nurse's notes show he was talking about building a deck. He thought he was back in his workshop, thought he was teaching me how to measure and cut. Measure twice, cut once sewin', he kept saying. Do it right the first time. I think about that a lot, about doing things right the first time. My parents had one chance to do right by him, and they failed spectacularly. I had one chance to keep my promise to him, and I did my best. It was not enough to save him, but maybe it was enough to save others. There's a quote from the trial that stays with me. The prosecutor asked my mother, if you could do it all over again, would you make different choices? She thought for a long moment, then said, I would have been more careful about the paper trail. Not, I would have taken better care of him. Not, I would have found a better facility. Not, I would have valued his life over money. Just regret about getting caught. That's the difference between us, I guess. My only regret is that I did not act sooner, did not fight harder, did not save him while there was still time. I was 19 years old, overwhelmed with school, trusting that my parents were doing the right thing despite all evidence to the contrary. I know better now. The last thing Grandpa built before his stroke was a birdhouse for the backyard. Simple design, clean lines, perfectly functional. It's in my apartment now, hanging outside my window. Every morning, sparrows come to feed there. They don't know or care who built it. They just know it's solid, reliable, there when they need it. That's what I want to be. What I want the foundation to be. Something solid and reliable for people who need help. Something that stands long after we're gone. Something that would make Grandpa proud. Last month, I got a call from a woman in Ohio. Her father was in a facility like Sunny Acres. She had read about our case online, recognized the signs. We helped her get him out, placed him in a better facility, started legal proceedings against the negligent one. Her father is thriving now, still dying. He's 94 with heart failure, but dying with dignity without pain, surrounded by people who actually care. She sent me a photo of him at his new place, sitting in a garden, smiling. Real smile, not the confused, medicated haze I saw in Grandpa's final photos. That one photo makes everything worth it. The family fracture, the legal battles, the sleepless nights, all of it. But here's something I haven't told anyone until now. I dream about Grandpa almost every night. Not nightmares exactly, but not pleasant dreams either. He's always trying to tell me something, but I can't quite hear him. He's always reaching for something just out of grasp. Sometimes he's young, in his army uniform. Sometimes he's in his workshop, covered in sawdust. But most often, he's in that bed at Sunny Acres, pressing that call button, looking at me with eyes that ask why I didn't come sooner. I wake up from those dreams and study harder. One more hour of pathology, one more chapter of pharmacology, one more step toward becoming the doctor who will make sure no one else dies like he did. It's 3 a.m. and I'm exhausted, but I think about him dying at 3 a.m. alone and I keep going. The psychology professor would probably say I'm dealing with complicated grief and survivor's guilt. They're probably right, but I prefer to think of it as fuel. Every emotion, every regret, every flash of anger, it all pushes me forward. My classmates think I'm obsessed. They're not wrong. While they're planning their specializations based on salary potential or lifestyle considerations, I'm mapping out a career in the least glamorous, lowest paid medical specialty. While they're at parties, I'm at the nursing home. While they're networking with surgeons and specialists, I'm talking to social workers and elder advocates. But I found my people. There's a growing movement of young healthcare workers who've had similar experiences. We call ourselves the sandwich generation survivors, caught between aging parents and our own futures, forced to make impossible choices too young. We meet monthly, share resources, plan protests at negligent facilities. We're changing things slowly but surely. 3 months ago, we got a law passed in our state requiring surprise inspections of all long-term care facilities. Not announced visits, where they can clean up and hide problems, but real inspections that show the truth. 17 facilities have been cited for major violations already, have been shut down. Each victory is small, but they add up. Each person saved, each family helped, each facility improved. It's all part of honoring Grandpa's memory and the memories of the 40 others who died at Sunny Acres. I keep a list of their names in my wallet. All 40. Sometimes when I'm tired, when medical school feels impossible, when the weight of it all is too much, I read those names. Eleanor Patterson, 88, former librarian. James Foster, 91, mechanic. Mary Sullivan, 84, nurse. Real people with real stories. Reduced to statistics, in a profit margin. Never again. Not if I can help it. People ask me if I'm happy. It's a complicated question. Am I happy my grandfather is dead? No. Am I happy my family is destroyed? No. Am I happy that I had to grow up overnight? That I had to become the adult in a family of people twice my age? No. But am I satisfied with the choices I've made? Yes. Am I proud of keeping my promise? Yes. Am I determined to make sure his death meant something? Absolutely. Happiness is a luxury for people who don't have missions. I have a mission. Every day, every choice, every action is guided by a simple question. Would this have helped Grandpa? Would this prevent another Grandpa from suffering the same fate? The medical school library closes at 2 a.m., but I have a key now because the janitor, Mr. Rodriguez, heard my story. His mother is in a nursing home, a good one, but he still worries. So he lets me stay after hours, studying in the quiet, preparing for the future where I can make a real difference. Tonight, I'm reading about sepsis, the condition that ultimately killed Grandpa. It's preventable almost always, with proper wound care and monitoring. A few minutes of attention each day could have saved him. Basic medical care that would have cost maybe $50 in supplies and an hour of properly trained staff time. $50 and an hour. That's all it would have taken. Instead, my parents saved $3,200 a month and lost their son, their reputation, their wealth, and whatever was left of their souls. I hope it was worth it to them. I hope they think about it every day in their studio apartment, eating ramen noodles. The same cheap meals they would have condemned Grandpa to if Sunny Acres had even bothered to feed him properly. But I don't want to end this story on bitterness. Grandpa wouldn't want that. He was not a bitter man, despite everything he had been through. War, poverty, loss, betrayal. None of it made him cruel. He remained kind until the end, thanking Gladys for the terrible food she brought, trying to comfort his roommate during the screaming nights, apologizing to the overwhelmed aides for needing help. That's the man they let die. That's the man worth fighting for. So here's what I want you to take from this story. Growing up is not about age. I know 60-year-olds who are still children, running from responsibility, choosing the easy path over the right path. And I know teenagers who've had to become warriors for their families, making decisions that would break grown adults. Being an adult means accepting that sometimes you're the only one who will do the right thing. It means standing up even when your knees are shaking. It means keeping promises even when they cost you everything. It means choosing humanity over money, dignity over convenience, truth over comfortable lies. If you're facing a similar situation, if you're watching a loved one suffer while others profit, know that you're not alone. Document everything. Speak up. Fight back. Yes, it will cost you relationships. Yes, people will call you difficult, ungrateful, vindictive. Let them. History will vindicate you. And more importantly, you'll be able to live with yourself. The last time I visited Grandpa's grave, I brought him a piece of furniture I had made. A small box, perfect joints, smooth finish, no shortcuts. I left it there in the rain, knowing it would deteriorate. But that wasn't the point. The point was showing him that his lesson survived, that something good came from all that pain. I kept my promise, Grandpa, I told the headstone. They paid for what they did, and I'm going to make sure no one else goes through what you did. I'm going to be the doctor you needed, the advocate you deserved, the family who should have protected you. The wind picked up, rustling through the trees he had loved, and for just a moment, I could swear I heard his voice. I know, son. I always knew you would. Tomorrow I have an exam on elder care protocols. My classmates are dreading it, seeing it as just another hurdle before they can get to the real medicine. But for me, every question is personal. Every protocol represents someone's grandfather, someone's grandmother, someone who deserves to die with dignity when their time comes. I'll ace that exam, not because I'm smarter than my classmates, but because for me, it's not academic. It's a promise. It's a mission. It's the least I can do for the man who taught me that doing things right matters more than doing them easy. Measure twice, cut once. Do it right the first time. Some lessons are worth more than money will ever be. If you're still here, still listening after all these words, thank you. Thank you for bearing witness to Grandpa's story, to all their stories. Thank you for caring about people you've never met, about injustices you might never personally face. That empathy, that willingness to listen and learn and act, that's how we change things. Subscribe to this channel if you believe in justice for our elders. Hit that notification bell to join our community of advocates and survivors. Share these stories with anyone who needs to hear them. And if you have an elderly person in your life, call them today. Visit them. Make sure they know they're valued, not for their money or their house or what they can leave you, but for who they are. Don't wait until it's too late. Don't assume someone else is taking care of them. Don't let them become another name on another list of preventable tragedies. Be the person you needed when you were helpless. Be the advocate they can't be for themselves. Be the family that puts love over money, always every time, no matter what. That's all we can do. But if enough of us do it, maybe the next Owen Scott won't have to choose between his parents and his principles. Maybe the next Samuel Scott will die peacefully, surrounded by love, with dignity intact. Maybe, but only if we fight for it. Only if we refuse to let profit matter more than people. Only if we remember that how we treat our most vulnerable defines us as human beings. Only if we keep our promises, no matter the cost. Thank you for listening to my story of growing up faster than I ever wanted to. I've left 2 more stories on your screen, both from young men who learned that sometimes becoming an adult doesn't happen at 18. It happens the moment your family needs you to be strong. Click on whichever one speaks to you. And if you want to join our community of people who understand what it's like to be forced to grow up overnight, that notification bell is waiting. Until tomorrow, remember, age is just a number, but courage defines who you really are.